Seeing Nico Jackson actually manage to remember that the goal is between these two white things and actually find it was remarkable. I mean, that in itself would make me deliriously happy.
I have to say, looking at today, for the first time this season, I'm a bit concerned.
Knock them as I do, they are clearly buying some talented players, and if Maresca, who I think might actually surprise all of us, can actually get a tune out of them, I think we should be in the top four.
We can take defeats, but we want to see 110% from our players. I expect our players to go to war when they cross that white line, especially in a London derby. What I saw was the complete opposite. It was like he just threw out 11 players on the pitch and just hoped they would deliver. So talkSPORT very kindly asked me to come on and talk about the post-match against Chelsea. I learnt about 20 minutes ago that I'd be doing this with a Chelsea fan, so this is going to be fun for me, I have to say. I'm joined by Stamford Chidge, who looks a lot happier than I do, and we are going to do exactly that, talk about the game. So through gritted teeth, Dave, give us your thoughts, mate. You're a lot happier than I am, that's for sure.
I mean, Dave, I am deliriously happy because I just did not expect that. We had a West Ham mate of mine on the podcast, on the Chelsea Fancast earlier this week, and he was telling me there's all sorts of problems at West Ham. He's almost as miserable as Chelsea supporters are. So I should have believed him. In fact, you know what? He actually messaged me. After the second went in, he said, "See, I told you." So yeah. I mean, West Ham. I think they were quite poor today, but I thought we were very good as well. I mean, for us, seeing Nico Jackson actually manage to remember that the goal is between these two white things, that are about 12 feet apart, and actually find it was remarkable. I mean, that in itself would make me deliriously happy, but, to beat you lot 3-0 up there, because actually, as you'll probably know, our record up there is not fantastic. It's pretty even as it pans out through the years.
Right.
So 3-0 at West Ham, great result, lovely day, very happy.
Do you know what, Dave? I think you're right. You were right to talk about Chelsea first and foremost, because understandably, everything that I've seen so far is how poor we were. I think the best way to summarise it is that a poor West Ham side lost to a very good Chelsea side. I mean, first and foremost, credit where credit's due through gritted teeth. I thought you were very solid defensively. I thought you bossed the midfield. I thought Caicedo was outstanding today. And you were so clinical in front of goal. And I think when you come up against a team that ticks those many boxes, it's always going to be hard to get a result. That said, we made it very easy. And I have to say, looking at today, for the first time this season, I'm a bit concerned. And I'm concerned as to whether the players are having the new manager. We keep saying it's early days at West Ham because we're going through a transitional period. But at what point do we stop classing this as early days? Is it 10 games, 15 games, 20 games a season? I don't know. But I look at today, and first and foremost, I thought he's set up in terms of his team selection in the right way. That's the team I would have chosen. So no fault there. But a key element of the game isn't just your team selection, it's what you're doing with those players. How are you setting up tactically? How are you going to approach the game? How are you going to break them down? And I look at what seemed like he was doing. And we had a flat back four, but then Edson Alvarez seemed to drop in to join the two centre-halves, making a back three, which then allowed the fullbacks to push on. I think that was a mistake, because the areas that were exposed behind the fullbacks when they did push on left us unbelievably vulnerable to the counter-attack. We couldn't deal with the pace.
Well, yeah.
And then if you look at the centre-halves, when we were that vulnerable, I mean, you could have put a bus through them. It was just unbelievable.
Well,
I can't believe...
It's interesting, actually, because, I mean, I was having a chat with the boys at half-time, and you're right. The thing is, Dave, there's actually some interesting similarities, I think, at the moment between West Ham and Chelsea. They've both got new managers, they've both got a whole load of new players, and they're both trying to figure out, I think, what the manager wants. And you kind of alluded to that a minute ago. We're told that Maresca likes this, possession-based game, pass, and all of that. But actually, what I've seen early days with him, and certainly a difference from the last few seasons, really, is a willingness to move the ball forward very, very quickly. So pass forward rather than pass sideways and backwards, which, as you can imagine, winds us up. I thought we were great on the counter-attack today. But there was a period certainly towards the end of the second half, and again periods in the second half really, where you looked to be getting much more into the game. I mean, I thought you were creating quite a lot of chances, and I mean, we did defend well, no doubt about it, because it's been a real weakness of ours for way too long. But we did defend well. But I thought that it was kind of a weird role reversal, that your finishing was as poor as ours has been. You had 3 or 4 really good chances, which you on another day might have put away. And that's actually been the story of Chelsea for the last 2 or 3 seasons. We just haven't been able to stick the chances we create away. And the difference today was, we did stick them away, although in the second half I thought we were pretty profligate when Jackson and Palmer went off, and Felix and Neto and then Kunku weren't half as good as the other boys. But we took our chances, and I thought we sat back. I mean, that's what we were saying. Were you taking control of the game, or were we just sitting back to try and hit you on the counter? Because that's not what we expect. It's not what we've been told that Maresca likes to do. But actually, the proof of the pudding was that that's exactly what we did today. We caught you on the break, and we put them away well.
Yeah, it's very true, mate. I mean, you talk about us having pockets of good play and creating chances. You're absolutely right. And one player that was pivotal to that, I think was one of the best players on the pitch today, or certainly for West Ham, was Somerville. I was really impressed with him. But then the gaffer whips him off. What's he doing? If you're going to try and get back into the game, keep your best players in form on the pitch. But he's taking him off. And then later on, to try and change it, he brings on Aaron Creswell. And it's a worry for me, because I look at today after a concern against Fulham away. We nicked a point at Craven Cottage. Really, we could have lost that 3 or 4-1. We nicked a point. And it was much like today, really. Flat, not on our toes, not winning the second ball, sloppy at times. And what needles me, and probably a lot of West Ham fans more than anything else, is we can take defeats, but we want to see 110% from our players. I expect our players to go to war when they cross that white line, especially in a London derby. But actually, what I saw was the complete opposite. It was like he just threw out 11 players on the pitch and just hoped they would deliver. There was no substance behind what they were trying to do.
You know what? You're right, Dave. That was actually quite a surprise to me, because I mean, the worry for me always when we play West Ham, particularly in your manner, is it's a big match for you. You don't like us. You love beating us. And the number of times I've seen West Ham turn into kind of 1970s era Brazil, they turn up and you've done it. You've done it at the Bridge many times as well. So I'm always a little bit worried about going to West Ham. But I'll be very honest with you. For a lot of that game, it was quite a stroll for us. I thought, we had a lot of control in midfield. I mean, again, one of the things that I think Maresca's trying to do is to, very Guardiola-like. He's trying to create like little triangles all over the pitch, so they're moving the ball quickly between each other. And I actually began to see that work today. But I was surprised by how much control we had, and I think maybe that's one of the reasons why I think you actually did get back into the game, because this is something that I do see with this kind of young Chelsea side. They do switch off. It all gets a bit easy, and they think, oh, that's it. We're job done here, and they ration it down a few notches, and you can't do that against anybody. And I think that's what allowed you back in the game. But again, the poor finishing you had and a bit of good defending from us meant that you didn't get back in the game. But I tell you what, another thing that really drove me up the wall today, and I mean, maybe I'm just seeing this through very blue spectacles here, but I thought the referee was awful. I mean, we got so. I mean, Palmer, and I think this is going to be a real problem for us going forward. Palmer is getting targeted time and time again, but I thought a lot of West Ham players were leaving their foot in today, and he wasn't doing anything. He wasn't even giving a foul.
Cole Palmer has obviously been a fantastic signing for Chelsea, but in your opinion, what did you make of him coming off and his reaction to coming off today?
I think Cole Palmer. I mean, it's been interesting because we've been musing this as well. Is he tired? Because he played a lot of games last season. He's young, of course. Played in the summer at the Euros as well. Is he carrying an injury? I mean, he went off in one of the early games, holding his hamstring, so we were a bit worried about that. So is he carrying an injury? Is he a bit tired? But I think there's something else going on, actually. And I think the fact is that he was our outstanding player last season, one of the best players in the Premier League, I think. And I think clubs have wised up to it. they didn't know who he was last year. This year they do, and they are targeting him. I mean, it happened in Bournemouth. You know, he had a reducer in the first 2 or 3 minutes from Lewis Cook, and he was consistently fouled all game. And of course, you know, Taylor did nothing about it. You know, I mentioned about the constant fouling today and leaving their foot in, and he got targeted again. So I think that Maresca probably took him off to protect him a little bit. But I can understand why he's frustrated, because it's not happening for him so far this season like it was last season, and he's very competitive, and he knows that he's arguably our best player. But he's going to get targeted. This is something as a young player he's going to have to figure out. I mean, I always remember, you know, Eden Hazard, the development of Hazard in this situation, because Hazard came to us when he was just a little bit older than Palmer. And, you know, he obviously got hacked to pieces every game, but he learned how to deal with it, you know, and I mean, I think Hazard's a better player than Palmer, but, you know, he learned to take the punishment and get on with it and still make an impact. And I think Palmer's going to have to learn that, because I think he's going to be targeted all season and he's not going to get any protection from the referees, judging from what I saw today.
I think that the standard of officiating in this country is poor across the board. And I mean, don't get me started on VAR and the people that sit behind that as well. I mean, you know, that's a different conversation for a different time. I mean, talking about officiating from a Chelsea's point of view, what did you think of the potential penalty?
Well, I mean, Dave, as you well know, when you go to West Ham away, you need to take a pair of binoculars with you. So I can probably, in all honesty, I can in all honesty invoke the Wenger clause here, saying I did not see it, but I didn't have a very good view. But I mean, weirdly, I had a much better view of the VAR decision on the big screen at the other end of the stadium, explaining that they didn't feel it was. I think they said they didn't think it was enough holding to warrant a penalty, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's one of them. I mean, a lot of West Ham fans are up in arms about it. I think Joe Cole said it was a penalty as well. It's one of them where
Did he really? Did Coley come out for you lot? Bless him.
I think he did. I could be. I may stand to be corrected. I think he did, but I don't know. It's one of them where Somerville's made something of it, but if you look at it, his arm is being held. So what's the letter of the law these days? I don't know. The rule book seems so overcomplicated. You could even argue that it started outside the box. Really and truly, would I have been shocked if it was given? No. Would it have been harsh on Chelsea if it was given? Possibly. I'm on the fence with it a little bit.
I mean, I'm pulling your leg a little bit. I mean, my take on it at the time was, if there was a foul, it was outside the box originally, and I think that's what the ref gave, wasn't it? And I thought he fell over when he got in the box. I mean, I can't repeat on air what I said at the time, but it was like something along the lines of, "Goodness gracious me, he fell over."
Yeah.
So no, I don't think it was a
bit of a play area. I don't know. Yeah, no, it's very true. But do you know what, Dave? I have to ask you, because obviously Chelsea have been going through a massive transitional period as well. Yeah. I mean, you've had a new owner who, when he bought Chelsea, I believe, didn't even know you could get relegated from the Premier League, which I find hilarious. So what you guys make of him, I don't know. But a new manager, new set of players. We're obviously going through a similar transitional period as well, with a new gaffer and a big transfer window. Like, at what point, to go back to an earlier point, do you stop saying it's early days? Like, how much patience are you giving your manager? Because you do seem to be going from strength to strength, whereas we've had a bit of a sticky start. Is it 5 games? Is it 10 games, 15 games a season?
Yeah. We've had a terrible. I mean, we stopped saying it's too early. You know, it's early days ages ago, because this is the line that the owners keep giving us. I mean, this is a very big question to answer, to be honest, Dave. But you know, none of us wanted Roman Abramovich to go. You know, it was all kind of organised by the government. So we didn't want that to happen. And you know, we'd just come off the back of being one of the best clubs in Europe. We'd won everything in 20 years. Yes, okay, we hadn't challenged for the Premier League for about 7 years, to be fair, but we were still kind of competing there or thereabouts. We won the Champions League 2-3 years ago, so not a lot needed to be changed. So there's this lot come in and they throw everything out. It's like it's been de-Romanized. They have to, they cannot have anything left of what he did. They have to kind of reinvent it and make it their own. So as far as they're concerned, it's like, oh, well, you've only been 2 years. It's early days yet. Oh, okay. So it's our third manager, blah, blah, blah. Not for us, mate. We were okay. We were doing all right in 2022. We'd just been in 2 cup finals and we'd made 4th place. And we have
Mm.
world-class players. And now look at us. That's why we've got the hump. We've got the hump. Many supporters, not all of them, obviously, but many of them have got the right hump with this ownership, because it's like they're using Chelsea as a bit of a toy, and it's like they're kind of playing FIFA Pro with real people. But the trouble is, there are real supporters there, and okay, yeah, it might be a bit entitled. And we've got used to winning. People like me can remember when that wasn't the case, obviously. But I just think it's the fact that it seems so unnecessary. I think, and you get it. I mean, I will ask you what you think about it in a minute, because that actually would be more interesting for me, getting an outside view on this. But most people who you meet and talk to in football, pundits, whoever, they look at what's going on at Chelsea and they cannot understand it. They cannot fathom it. It makes no sense. Like, you are not going to win the Premier League title with an entire squad of 22-year-olds, etc., etc., etc. So, yeah, that's why we're frustrated, because in normal football, all you needed to do was to make 2 or 3 tweaks in the side, keep a good manager, and we'll be rocking and rolling again. And they've just done exactly the opposite, and it's very frustrating.
I mean, owners of football clubs are typically the pantomime villains, aren't they? And it seems
Of
like that could be
course.
the case at Chelsea. It certainly is the case at West Ham.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I don't know. I look at Chelsea. I was actually quite shocked that Pochettino went. I don't
Yeah.
really know what the story is there, but he had a real surge towards the end of that season, didn't he? It looked like he was making his mark on that club, and
No,
then
you're,
he sort of had to start from square one again, which was strange. But I have to
no.
say, I think you look like you're going from strength to strength. And whilst West Ham were very poor today, I thought
Yeah.
Chelsea were very good, as easy as we made it. And I think you could have a go this year, I wouldn't be surprised, personally, if you were knocking on the door of a top 4 finish this season.
No, I mean, Dave. I mean, this is. I think this is true. I mean, look, you're right about Pochettino. I mean, if you looked at our form from January to the end of last season, we would have been in the top 4. We were a top 4 side, so he
Mm,
had got us back to where we need to be. I actually think he walked as much as he was pushed, and I think again the reason is that Pochettino's a proper football man. He's used to kind of running football clubs in the old way. And I think he was saying, well, I need some experienced players in these positions, yada, yada, yada. And I think he said, no, that's not how we're going to do it. We've got a data approach. We're going to do it like Brighton do it. And if you don't like it, well, we're not going to change. So he thought, well, I'm not hanging around then. It's not the way I do things. So I think he walked as much as he was pushed. But you see, I think you're right. I mean, at the end of the day, even though their approach has been weird and scattergun-like, we have bought some very decent players. I mean, Caicedo had a tough start, but I think anybody walking into the chaos that is Chelsea at the moment would struggle a bit. But as you said, I thought he was our man of the match today. I think you rated
mm,
his performance. He's beginning to look like a player that you spend 100 million quid on. Fernandes, not so much, but I think there's a positional issue with him. Cole Palmer, I don't think any of us realised how good he would be, but he's clearly very good. And there are several other players too. You've got the nucleus of a very, very good team there. And I agree with you. If they keep on improving, there's no reason why they shouldn't be in the top 4. But I still think they're a way off winning the title. Or I mean, we were talking about this in the pub the other day. We're watching the Champions League matches and just thinking we're so off that. We're way off that.
mm,
And that's not a position that Chelsea supporters have been used to in recent years. We used to get to semi-finals and winning the thing, but we look at it and think, cool, blimey, some of those teams are way better than we are. So I think there's a way to go there, and I think that's where they're going to need to fill some of these gaps, like a decent goalkeeper, a proper decent striker, a decent, I still think that there's not a very good spine in that side and a lack of experience and leadership, but somehow I don't think they're going to go that way. I mean, they may well get another goalkeeper and another striker, but they're not going to get, like Ivan Toney, for example, would have been, I think, a pretty good buy. But there's no way they
mm,
would have bought him because he's too old. They just won't do it that way. So I think
mm.
as a consequence, it might take a bit of time. But, knock them as I do, they are clearly buying some talented players. And if Maresca, who I think might actually surprise all of us, can actually get a tune out of them, yeah, I think you're right. I think we should be in the top 4.
Well, Dave, I would wish you well for the rest of the season, but I don't mean it. So I won't. And let's just hope that this is just a bump in the road for West Ham and we're title contenders like we should be come the end of the
Yeah,
season.
Dave, you've done all you needed to do today, so I shall thank you for today. But no, I'm sure you'll be all right because it's a bit like I was saying with us. I think you've got too many good players to be in any real trouble, but they're just trying to
Yeah.
figure out how to make it all work. I mean, it's Clapham. You talk about early days. It's early days for you under Lopetegui, and you'll sort it out because you've got some decent players down there.
Yeah, we're waiting for it to click, and please God it does.
Yeah. Well, have a good season for the rest of it anyway.
Thank you, mate.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.